This is a regular meeting of the Rules Committee of the Representative Town Meeting, and I'll call it to order. First item on the agenda is approval of the February 8 minutes. Can I have a motion in favor, please? Lois, second?
Second.
Teresa?
Teresa.
Changes, comments, any problems with the minutes?
I have one comment, just a typo on suggest, and I think maybe it should read suggest. We request the director to attend until further notice. So, but I can go over that with Mark. It's just
Okay.
Just text me that, Monica.
okay.
If you could just text me that, thank you.
Otherwise, I don't have any adjustments.
All right, so ready to vote to approve the minutes with the adjustments noted? All in favor? There's Patty.
Yep.
Opposed? I don't see any. It's unanimous. Possible speakers. David wants to come back to each meeting. He said that the situation is changing so fast. What I told you 2 weeks ago is, history, and he really appreciates the opportunity to come up and keep the RTM abreast of what's going on.
Seth, number
yes.
2 was supposed to be report from the Technology Committee.
Yes.
Did you want to skip that?
Oh, I'm sorry. I went over. Excuse me for that. Yeah, I'll go. I'll recognize Lois and do the report from the Technology Committee. I do have just one announcement. Monica has joined the Technology Committee. Each person on that committee, I think, has their own project going at the same time. There's a lot going on there, huh, Lois? So, great, Lois, if you'd go ahead and report. Thanks for stopping me there.
First of all, I'd like to thank Monica, Mark, and Mike for the amazing job that they're doing. There's been a lot of work done, and you'll all get a sense of it. You can't even appreciate how in-depth we've gotten. We're trying to keep it at a level that, that we can keep it going. But really, it's a great committee, and everybody's doing their part, and I'm really grateful for it. There are 5 topics I want to do tonight. 3 of them are informational, and 2 of them are discussion and rules, turning them back to the Rules Committee for action or decisions and things like that. So the first topic of something we've been working on is the FOIA, and that is the question of whether emails are discoverable or not discoverable, depending on 1, which email you're using, and 2, what kind of mail aggregator you use. And Wayne, as Seth was about to say, that Wayne Fox will be giving an update at the next RTM meeting to talk about this, so we're all current with the current thinking based on legal issues involving the use of emails. So that's the end of our discussion on that topic. The next topic has to do with the mailing of warnings and resolutions. We brought this up because, the idea on the table is, can we make the mailing of warnings and resolutions be optional? And this is where we ended up. Currently, everything is distributed electronically. That is what Lisa is doing, and everything is posted to the website. So information is available. We also, thanks to Frank researched what was in the ordinances, and it turns out we have ordinances for minutes say they're allowed to be distributed electronically, but the ordinance for warnings and resolutions doesn't say that. So we're left with 2 parts. One is, the first part is we recommend making the ordinances consistent, which means allowing electronic distribution of minutes of resolutions and warnings and backup material, okay? And that's part A. Part B is a discussion of, do we want to give people the option of opting in or out of getting warnings on it being mailed? And the issue behind that is it saves time and effort and some cost, not major, but some, within town hall if we want to do that. And some people feel strongly that they don't need the mailings, the electronics are fine. And others feel in our discussions that having the warnings mailed to us is important because they have the piece of paper and it reminds them of the meeting. So I would like to, let's just talk about the first part. If we're interested in having that done, we could assign it to TGS&A, and that is making the ordinances consistent that allows for the electronic distribution of warnings and resolutions. Frank, do I have that correct? Are there any questions, conversation? Okay, so if everybody's comfortable with that, Seth, how do I go about making this go forward and become something for TGS&A to look at?
Well, I'll put it on the, I would write it up and then I'll put it on the agenda. And also, I think we would have TGS&A come up, perhaps in conjunction with town council, for wording for I guess resolution, and then you could either vote in favor of it and then of the proposals, and then if we wanted to, then we would put it on the agenda for the RTM.
Okay. So
What I think the next step could be is if we all agree to it, I'll send it over to Wayne to see if there's any conflict with state statutes about notification. There's a whole group of town clerks, the Town Clerks Association of Connecticut, and Lord knows what they have to say about notifications and such. So we do need to do a little research on it before we present it back. But what I will do tomorrow is to send it over to Wayne and invite him to comment on the state statutes part of it. And perhaps we can then search what the Town Clerks Association information has for us. I know that at some point, that same little section of the town code that we would be modifying also has in it that the newspapers have to be notified. And there's been a move in the past to stop doing that. But in Hartford, the newspaper lobbied against taking that out of town code. So there's a little bit of a world out there that we don't really know about that has to do with Hartford and the way these things work. So I would appeal for just a little pause while we do our research on it before we take a dive into an empty swimming pool.
Right. Good.
okay, so
that's what I'll do tomorrow.
So the second part, I think
Monica?
we'll hold off until
One
we
second,
get.
Monica?
So Lois, do you want to speak to that? This is possibly something we could do in November with the
Yeah, I was
preference.
getting to that, yeah.
Yeah.
So the second part is that one is to have the town code consistent, okay, and that Frank's going to research. If it turns out that it's okay for us to do it electronically, the second part of the idea was to give people an option to either opt in or out, and we can decide that, but include it as a question on the preference sheet and to have it start in November when we start the next group of the RTM. Then Lisa will have the information in writing from individuals and can easily create a list of people that want to have it mailed or not mailed, depending on how you all want to state it. But so that's the second part. Should we have that discussion now or wait until we find out from Frank that we can do it?
Well, I would suggest that you put the proposals together in a writing, so we have it in front of us, and then we can distribute it for the next meeting of the Rules Committee. If you're ready, you can say, yeah, we're ready, or yeah, we're not, but.
Okay.
I think the second thing is really just saying, do we want to allow an opt-in and an opt-out in November? I think that's pretty simple. And then we vote on it, right?
Does anyone have any concerns or questions? Let's get them out now and make our lives easier.
Okay, so I have a question.
Good.
Before we go forward with this, I'd like to get the input from our own acting town clerk.
I have.
Okay, as well as Kate, to make sure that both of them are comfortable with this and that we're not creating more work for them.
I've spoken to Lisa about it. She said it's straightforward, and having fewer mailings is less work. I think I mentioned it to Kate, but I will double check, Jack. Okay? Lisa's
Okay,
on board.
that's all I request.
Okay.
Thanks. I'll be right back.
But Kate was in favor
Okay.
of it before we talked to Lisa.
Yeah. So I'll double check.
Just for the time it takes to fill envelopes for 100 people.
Yeah.
It saves her people time. Kate's right.
So we'll make sure that Kate's on board also double checking, and then we're good. Okay?
Yeah,
So,
because
Right. So the point being that we get something that's in writing on the table, and we can put it out ahead of the rules meeting, the next rules meeting, and then everybody's prepared to come in and talk about it.
okay.
One of the feedback we got from Lisa, because originally we were talking about you could opt in or opt out of whether you wanted it electronically or by mail. And Lisa said everyone's getting it electronically whether they want it or not. So there's not going to be any opting out of that. I'm not keeping two lists, but I'd be glad to have people opt out of the mailing.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
So the next one I want to address is, thank you for all that. Was a discussion Teresa brought up last time on email addresses, posting or accessing email addresses for RTM members and we did some research and we learned where things are on the web. And the net effect of looking at all that felt that the information was available, but we want to go through it with all of you so that we're all on the same page and we can all see what's available. Okay?
Do I do the screen share now?
That would be wonderful. Thanks, Mike. And I've gotten a full lesson on using the town website. Major progress. So just go to ct.gov, darionct.gov. Okay, so if you go to darionct.gov, that's the main website, and then you scroll down slightly, you'll see that the boxes, and the box on the right says the representative town meeting. If we click on representative town meeting, comes up with information. That first, on the first row, which says RTM contact email, darionrt@darionct.gov. That email goes to Lisa, and it is good for anybody in the town to send an email that says, please send this out to all of the RTM members, or if you want to get to a specific RTM member. And Lisa's comfortable with that. Okay, that's part of the purpose of that. If we go down a little further in the middle, you'll see, wait, slow down, Mike. It says RTM members by district and committed. It's a public list. And that list shows name, address, and phone number. It does not include the RTM, the email address. And part of the concern for the email addresses is the ability for people to scrape them and put them into lists that then start sending bogus emails to people. So that's the hesitation for putting up the email addresses. Okay, can we go back, continue going back one more? But if you go down further, on that same page where it has the major one, the RTM committees are listed and the RTM districts are listed with the chair of the committee and the district chair. So if one clicks on, you can click on any one of those if you don't mind. It's going to work. So if you click on the chair, you will get an email on whatever service you have on your computer that you can send an email to the chair of a district or a chair of a committee and get information out that way. So when we looked at it overall, we felt that everybody is accessible either overall through the Darien RTM email, direct individual through that, or through the different committees, all off that one page. And we felt that as the committee, we felt that covered the basis. For League of Women Voters, Teresa, if you want to, or if you need help with coming up with information that says, this is where you find everything and this is how you get to people.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's fine. It'll just be interesting when they're doing the voters guide, but okay.
Lois?
But I think that works. I mean, I've seen other towns have done that as well, so that's helpful.
And I think it also, it focuses the email addressing and updating and stuff like that. It's in one place for, it's less work for Lisa and updating in multiple places. And that's part of what we're also trying to pay attention to is how we get it.
Yeah.
Patty?
This is Patty. I have two questions. The first one is, did you find out how our peer towns do it?
Yeah, I looked at a whole bunch of towns and they range from some of them having up to some of them having passwords to some of them having nothing. There was no consistency. I did research all the towns.
So some of them definitely have the emails up.
Some of them have them up and they're not clickable, but they're still scrapable. Some of them have them behind a password. Some of them don't have them at all. It's just a hodgepodge, and I sort of felt like we were in the middle of what was available to people.
I personally feel like, I would like people to be able to get in touch with me. I think that address listing is a weird thing. We don't need the address, and we should have our phone or our cell phone numbers and our email. So that is how I feel. And then if we're not going to do that, then we really need to promote to folks to use that Darien RTM email that goes to Lisa. But I will say that, our town website is not always easily able to get through. And so it should be easier for people to get in touch with us, specifically people on, right.
And I understand what you're saying, but I found, having spent a lot of time on it now, that they've upgraded the access. And if you go in on the main page and click RTM, you get to that page I was just at, which gives you different options of how to get in touch with people.
I know, but people don't want to necessarily click to a chair. Like they want to click on and see all the people on the education, or all the people on Parks and Rec, or all the people on TGS&A, or all the people in their district, right? So let's say it's an issue in District 1 about 7-Eleven or something. They want to go in and do that. They may not necessarily want to send an email to everyone on the RTM, but they want to reach out to their district representative. But I think that's a lot of work to have Lisa just send that to them versus these people.
Patty, if they want to go to their district, if they want something to go to their district, then they click on the district chair and say, please send it to the district.
I just don't,
That's fine. Yeah, I mean, it's open for everybody's opinion and everybody's thoughts.
Yeah, I mean.
Matter of fact, Patty, I would be more comfortable if on certain places where I want to respond to somebody, not necessarily in town, when I click on their name, it doesn't give me their email address. I can then put in my information, and behind the scenes, it then sends it to their email address. And if you want to have something like that and have everybody who's listed on a committee, send to all the education committee and that, I'm fine, but I'm more comfortable with people not necessarily being able to scrape. I'm the one who raised about scraping. And I know in conversations with Lois, Greenwich has the same concern. And so if we want to develop a system that, you click on it for any of our elected officials, and then it just sends it to them, that's fine. But, the rest of it I have concerns about.
If there's a way to explore that, Jack or Lois, and that's not a difficult thing to do, I just think that is something we should consider.
That probably would be on the steering committee's list because that would require some level of website design or redesign. But we can check into it.
Yeah, one of the towns did that. And effectively, what it was a form that went to Lisa, or that went to the town clerk. And then the town clerk would forward it to whoever they wanted it to, which would make more work for the town clerk if that's the
That's
way
what I don't want to make more work for Lisa. That's why I'm saying, from the past history, we know that people do like to send group emails to their districts or to the certain committees, and they like to have the name. And then what if they want to respond to them one-on-one, et cetera. So if there's a way to do it that we can explore later to avoid the scraping, I think it's worth just doing a little more diligence on it. Thank you.
Okay.
Lois, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
So to Patty's point, the way we have the email, I keep looking at my computer. So the way we have that Darien RTM that will send it automatically to all of us, right? Is that what it'll do?
No, it doesn't. It sends it to Lisa.
Oh, it sends it to Lisa. Oh, okay.
So,
Never mind then.
Teresa, somebody could put in, I want to send this to Teresa.
Right. Yeah. No.
Lisa
Okay.
would forward it to you.
Okay. I got it. Never mind. Okay. Never mind.
Adele had her hand up.
It works for me.
If we consider what was going on with Pear Tree Point, many of us got multiple emails that were sent to the full RTM. So it works.
Yeah, I think it works. I just wanted to chime in and say, Lois, I think I'm okay with the way it is now. People get to us.
Okay. And we will take a look. I mean, if it's really simple and there's a different way to do it, Patty,
Right.
We'll definitely take a look. If it requires a lot of work or more work for Lisa, then we'll let you know. We'll let you know what we find out. But we've been trying to balance all the balls and make sure that we can cover our bases on things. But I was pleased to see that there was all this methodology in place already that I wasn't aware of, but now I am.
Yeah, I mean, it's been on the website, right? So I just feel like the League of Women Voters have been asking for this for years and years, and we gave opportunities to opt in or opt out for that. But so if you can explore further, if you want if you want to put the work on me, I'm happy to do that. If you want to let me know what town did it.
But I think that the League of Women Voters would need to put something in whatever document they're creating or electronically on the website that says, this is where the information is and this is how you do it, which is where the links are.
Right, and that's two separate issues. That's League of Women Voters, but I do feel like, again, just to end the conversation, when I, 12 years ago, when I came on prior to coming on to the RTM, the way I learned to reach out to people was by calling them. And at that time, it was only home phone numbers at the time. And then that was difficult. And so, this is now 12 years later, and I'm just trying to be more user-friendly and for better communication. Thank you.
Teresa, did you have something too?
Yeah, just so quickly. Okay, going back to the League of Women Voters, because I have done the voters guide. It would be helpful then, I think finding current members' email addresses are relatively easy, because if you find one person in the district, you can always say to them, hey, I need these email addresses. It's when the new people are running that we're struggling, that there's a struggle to find email addresses. So I don't know if Lisa is allowed to give those email addresses out to people, people who will be new on the ballot. So that's one consideration.
I don't know that she has those.
Yeah, they should be on your form when you have to get the 25 signatures. I think it's on. I'm pretty confident it's on there. Then my second suggestion to consider,
Teresa,
yep.
before you go much further, people have to give permission to give out their email address.
So then that can be on
it's
the
not
form
something that the town just do.
So then maybe that should be when you fill out a form for your 25 signatures. It's got your name, your address, your email address, your phone number. Maybe just put another line there. Can we please release your email address to the League of Women Voters or something like that? Then the second point, with regard to the RTM committees, might it be a good idea to create a a general email, kind of like having Darien RTM, and it'll automatically go to the town clerk, where it is one specific to education.
There is. You have
No.
the-
Yes, no, I see. I'm looking at it, and when I click on education, it'll open up an email to Clara's Gmail account. And I'm wondering if we create like a Darien education just that isn't specific to Clara or specific to Jack, or you know what I'm saying?
But they're the chair, and their responsibility would be. the
I
same.
know, I understand that, but they're not necessarily going to be the chair every year, is what I'm saying. So,
I know, but Lisa checks that.
So
I mean,
the new chair is there.
My experience
You know-
with the gentleman who, excuse me, just a second. My experience with the gentleman who runs the systems that includes the email for the town, first of all, they don't like to have even the moderator involved in massaging the names around into different groups. They ask you what you want, and then they will try to produce it for you. And I think there is a control element in there. I'm not sure exactly whether there's a legal thing behind it or what. I've never really gotten to getting into it this deeply. But I did notice it because I was trying to create some groups to be able to send stuff out myself as a moderator. And other than the Rules Committee, I really didn't get very far with it. And the Rules Committee one, trying to change it, like if for some reason you wanted to add one, you had to get this gentleman to come in and add it. It's not flexible the way it is now, but it is controlled. So maybe there's a way to adapt that to be able to create groups, as you say, not to take, especially to one person, but to common groups that any person would use, who, let's say, was chair of a committee or chair of a district. It's just a different way of handling it. Okay, excuse me. There was somebody had their hand up. Was it you, Jack? Okay.
Seth, I want to add something. You know, for all the years that I've been in F&B, and it's about 5 or so now, when they send out my agenda for the committee, interesting enough, it has a lot of town folks on it, but the superintendent of schools and the chair of the Board of Ed are not on that list. So I have to forward it to them all the time.
Why don't you ask Lisa?
So, no, I asked, and it's just as easy for me to forward if, of what's going on. But I'm just saying, and this is supporting what Seth is saying, that to get these modifications are not as simple as, just putting something in.
And I'm sure you're just thrilled here, Lois, with the lack of complexity in all of this. I mean, if we went once around the room, we could do this all night. Have we got you enough problems on the table and enough complexity to deal with for the next meeting?
Yeah, basically, what I'm hearing is that, or based on what we've researched, that what we have works. Would it be nice to make it better? Yes. Could we do it through either grouping committee groups? And would that be better? Instead of just going to Jack, it would go to the finance thing. But that may end up, but we'll ask if it's more work. And the second thing is, it has to do with, can they really, can we get them to put another level in where the email address is protected, yet people can get to individuals? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other thing that I'm going to add, and it depends upon whether or not we have something active going on that's controversial. Sometimes when I've gotten emails and I'm sending out a citizen's comments on it, I have to provide all the factual information because most of it is just false or misleading. And so I don't want that going out to the committee, which then has us have to discuss it in committee when people are just making errant assumptions. So it does become a little more work there at times. And it only happens when we have something that's controversial going on. But I've had people write to us that we should go back to having computer instructors and stop the whiteboards because they didn't understand what the whiteboards were doing. So,
I think we might also run into some FOIA stuff if stuff's going too far and too many people are commenting, Jack, though, wouldn't we?
no. What I do is I send it out to my committee, and my committee is fully aware that if they have comments, they can make a comment back to me, and if there's a discussion, we'll have it in an open meeting.
Okay. So it's just making sure that your committee's up to date on everything that you're hearing is more of the point, right?
Right. You even see when I send out the reports from F&B prior to the meeting, I do say, please do not respond, as we would be violating FOIA.
Okay, yeah, I saw that. Okay. So we'll see what it take to change some, what the possibilities are, and touch base with both the tech people and with Lisa and Kate and see what we get.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
I do want to add one other thing, and that is,
Okay.
I want to thank everybody on this committee, and that's why you guys are being paid the big bucks to work on this.
Thanks, Jack.
Thanks, Jack.
You're welcome.
It seems like, I will say this as a moderator, it seems like each week I get a request for another body into the technology committee. And it's not like there's nothing to do.
I'm
Okay,
hoping to move
so
several of these things out of our,
it's okay to move
We're
right
moving.
along on this, Lois.
okay, and so the two more points that I want to make is we looked at what happened with the registration and the complexity of changing the names, and we also looked at the reporting that came out and a bunch of other things, and we have resolved, but still not finalized, as Adele pointed out, that we are going to strongly request people, when they register, put their number before their names. And we have found a way of changing the form so that when that goes out to people, there'll be another point that says, have you put your number before your name? And you have to check the box. There'll be only one box that says yes. And you have to check that box. So that's the hope, that people won't forget when they register. Now, Adele brought up a good point, and that's the kind of stuff we need to work, because we found the software is very quirky, as you can only guess. That sometimes it doesn't ask you to register, it just says, thank you, you're registered. And that we want to make sure doesn't happen. But right now we're moving towards upfront, when you're registered, there's your form, here's a box that you have to click that says, yes, I did it. If you just click the box and don't do it, I give up. But that's the intention. We're reminding people and not trusting that they'll just remember to do it. And we'll stay away from changing numbers in meetings and things like that. Okay? So that's where we are on that. And having the information has been really, really helpful in doing calculations and things. And just as an update, we had 95 plus members at the meeting, and only 2 members were not able to vote. So we're doing and we're following up with the 2 people that couldn't vote. So I feel like we're using the technology and following up and trying and getting it accessible to everybody. Obviously, as I said before, if anybody has any concerns or questions from anyone they hear, please just contact any member of the committee, because we are following up on everything. And so is there any more questions on GoToWebinar at this point? Okay. The one other point is the Town Technology Steering Committee, which was the initial reason we formed this committee, that the town is creating a steering committee. The selectmen have been working on the mission statement for the committee, and they have gone through several drafts and iterations. It's subject to being approved at their next meeting based on the latest draft that they just discussed last week. And then they listed the members of the committee, and there's a member, one of the listings includes a member from the RTM. So that's, that's where we are with that, and we'll keep track of that. We had asked for the technology committee to be ex officio, but I think we'll just make that happen as we go along. So we don't need that as part of the mission statement. Seth, are you okay?
I put a request in for the technology committee. I didn't get a heavy response on that. I said the backup, would be someone from the RTM. We have some, very talented people on the RTM, and so it looks like they went with that option.
Yeah, so the RTM, and there's 3 additional people that can be from the public. So if there are other people that say we come up with 2 or 3 people that we think are really good, one of them can be an RTM person, and 2 or 3 we can recommend from a public standpoint. And it's up to you, Seth, how you want to go about doing that. Okay. Any questions on the steering committee? Okay, I'm done. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lois.
Thank you.
That's great. Nice job. Thank you, Lois. Outstanding. Thank you all, because there's a lot to it, and but I think you're turning over all the stones. I think the stones are getting turned over there, so that's great.
Seth, go ahead, Monica.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Seth, I just have one question.
Monica, yes.
I have one question for Teresa. So Teresa, if the tech committee sends you something that lays out where you can find all this information, will that help your League of Women Voters brochure or the whatever it is that you're working on?
No, I mean, look, a lot, the women who do this know where to, I think the Darien RTM one that Lisa has is super helpful for people who are running again. It's finding email addresses for people on the ballot the first time. That's going to be really, really hard. And certainly those are the people you want to make sure get their, they're running for a reason. They certainly want to be in the voters guide.
Okay.
And it's hard sometimes. So if we can, like I said, on the form when you're getting your 25 signatures, if there can be maybe a line that says, may we please release your email address to the League of Women Voters, or somebody who can contact you about the election, that'll be helpful.
That's a different discussion. Okay.
Right.
Got it. Thanks.
Before we go, there's something else that was done in
We're
the last week or two that I thought that is worthy of.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But I think is worthy of note. Mike Wheeler sent to myself and John Zabrowski all of the Board of Selectmen budget review on the Vimeos, and where timestamp was available. I sent it out to my committee. I also sent it out to all the chairs that have Board of Selectmen responsibility in the budget. So I just wanted to put that out there. We're very thankful for what he did, and I think just that recognition should be given, and that's why I'm taking the time now to do it.
Thank you. That's good. That's great.
And Mike,
Thank you.
thankfully somebody gives you some of those timestamps, right?
Yeah, these actually, one of the videographers did. But we just do the timestamps. The committees do them. Board of Finance and Planning and Zoning
That's what
do
I
it
meant.
on their own.
That's what I meant.
But we only do the Board of Selectmen meeting for the budget hearings.
Got it. It's very helpful. Thank you.
All right. Are we ready to move on? Okay. Just the next is possible speakers for the March 15 RTM meeting. David Knopf and Wayne Fox, to just reiterate that if you're not going to use a town email, if you start using your personal emails for town business, there are all kinds of FOIA issues that come up, and you're better off doing it. It's a basic thing of what he wants to say, but he will talk about some finer points of it. And so I thought, have him give a little briefing on it. And so those two folks. Then talking about
Seth, the only thing that I would Seth, about the speakers, we have a planning, zoning, and housing meeting Thursday, and we have Terry Wood speaking to us about what's going on in the legislature. If she would be available, or Matt Blumenthal, or because this would be the last chance that we would be able to have such an update, because the next meeting is the budget meeting.
All right. So get a hold of Terry, see if she can, and the topic direction you're thinking for her is the legislation that's coming forward, or is it the the planning and zoning issue, or what do you think?
I think she's going to primarily talk to us about the housing legislation that's pending.
All right.
But she could
Okay.
talk about whatever she wanted, or thought was important that as a group we should know.
Mike, what time does your meeting
Okay.
start?
7:30 Thursday night.
Okay. Anybody else have anything? Okay.
Well, for David Goff, as more and more people are having their second shot, I'm wondering if David might be able to talk about whether or not the, if you're traveling out in the 10-day incubation that you have, and whether or not there's any changes to that if you have 2 shots of that would be appreciated.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, you still
I'll
have
bring that up.
to do the state form, but I'm wondering if there's any changes to that, as a good number of people in town have been getting their first and second, for that matter.
Yeah. Everybody who's had their 2 shots, hold up your hand. Anyway, Jack, hey, nice going, guys. Oh, what happened here? There we go. Okay. The next is RTM items and assigned committees. Yes, Monica.
She's got her hand up.
So,
Here, yeah.
so Seth, maybe you have people send you any questions that they want David to address?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure, we have one. And yeah, if there's any other things, sure.
I mean, it could also be as simple as, a lot of people have had a hard time with VAMs. If it's 3 spots on the VAMs website that are tricky, he can just talk about these are the 3 things and this is what you need to know. Like the calendar is not the same as your phone calendar. Flip it this way, or scroll all the way down and then make sure you hit, you know what I mean? There's 2 or 3 spots that I think catch people a little bit.
I can thank VAMS for sending me to West Haven for my shots.
There you go.
Oh, there's testimony right there. Okay.
Norwalk Hospital worked very nicely.
Right, there you go. All right. Moving on to RTM items and assigned committees. The pension board is not ready yet.
Hey, Seth, apologies. Seth, I'm sorry. On the agenda, as far as possible speakers, I saw Wayne Fox on there. What did we talk? Did we talk about him?
Yeah, I did.
I'm sorry. I must have blanked.
David Knopf and Terry Woods.
FOIA. Wayne Fox is on mark for FOIA to talk about the emails.
Right. I just didn't hear us. I missed it. We talked about it. Okay, got it. And Terry Fox.
It's a good thing he didn't get his mic working last month, because he really had misunderstood the question. So
Yes.
it's good that he didn't get his mic working, because he wasn't answering the question that we had. We didn't ask the question properly.
Moving right along. So I suggest we allow this town pension board thing to pass here until they act. I called the chair, asked her if she could do a special meeting before the 15th and take care of this. And it didn't, I don't know, it didn't seem to be of interest. So we don't have a confirmation that they would do that. So I'm just, we'll keep talking to her. Frank talked to her, town council talked to her. Hopefully here they will meet and deal with this, and then we can put it on the agenda. So I would cross this one off for the next RTM meeting. Next, approve the 9,200 to purchase the concession equipment. Town of Darien, rather than use a third party, is going to do it themselves and buy the equipment. Do you want to talk about deep discount, Jack, or do you want to pass on that? And
No, I think that Adele and I have already spoken offline. I think Park and Rec is primary and F&B secondary. There are 2 bids that the town has received. We cannot give information about the bids during our report, just so that people understand that.
okay.
We're purchasing. This is about the purchase of the equipment, period.
Right.
Right. Well,
Right.
from my perspective, I'm going to be able to say is based upon the 2 bids. The return on investment is 1 year.
Okay. Now, you're going to go first, Adele?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Jack? Okay. The next would be amend the agreement between the town of Darien, Connecticut, and Green Bank for billing and collecting CPACE tax assessments. That's the town no longer having to do that. The Green Bank is going to pick that up. That's pretty straightforward. I think it's F&B.
Yeah, I've already worked on it. I've spoken to Kathy, to Wayne, and we have everything lined up for what needs to be.
Okay. Great. Questions? All right. So, setting the agenda, we've got the $9,200 to purchase the concession equipment at Park and Rec first, F&B secondary, and then amending the agreement, it's just F&B. All right. So setting the agenda, I just jotted down a draft there at the bottom, and we'll take the town pension fund piece out and just go with David Knopf and Wayne Fox. We'll add Terry Wood in.
Seth?
And then approve the 9,200 and amend the agreement. Does that sound correct?
Seth?
Yes, Ann. Yes, Ann.
I would also like to ask Matt Blumenthal to speak as well, till we get both sides.
Oh, gee.
Oh, all right.
I don't know that he can. I can just ask.
I mean, he does represent Darien also, so he should be asked.
He represents part of
All right.
it.
But he still represents part of Darien, yes. Just like Terry represents part of
Terry
Darien.
represents all of Darien.
Yeah.
No, she doesn't.
No,
She
she
only
doesn't.
No, she
represents part of
doesn't.
Darien.
Most of it.
I am. We really
But
don't
there
want
are
to get into. We do not want to get into a political debate. Okay, and I don't want to provide a forum for that. So the deal with Terry was not. I think was just informational. But I hear what you're saying. My suggestion is, given that we might consider allowing them to debate it in whatever forums they find, but not at the RTM. And so we would not do Terry or Matt.
I support that. I support that. The RTM is a nonpartisan body, and I think that you are making a mistake going down this road.
Okay, do we have agreement there, folks?
I second that. I think we should have both or none. Sadly enough, none. I think
I agree with that.
we would benefit from hearing the discussion. I agree with Seth that it shouldn't be a debating society. If there was some format that we could get the views of both sides, but I don't think that we should just have one.
Is there an
Well, in
independent?
the RTM case, I think you have to be careful with that. You know, if there are other organizations in town that can put a couple of people up to talk about, and there have been some very in-depth discussions about it, and maybe we ought to leave it to them to do that. Everybody okay with that?
I am, and I'll give a plug to the League of Women Voters. If you're not a member, join, because Terry and Matt did an excellent discussion last week, open only to members. So join.
Okay, Terry.
And you don't have to be a woman to join.
Good plug, Teresa.
Moving right along, can I have a motion then to set the agenda for the March 15 RTM meeting, having the two speakers, right? David and Wayne Fox, and then the $9,200 and amending the agreement between the town of Darien and the Green Bank. Can I have a motion in favor? Excuse me, Lois.
I have a concern on trying to figure out a better way to get those issues out there, because there are things going on at the state that I think all the RTM members should be aware of. And that was the initial part which led us down the path. And I don't disagree where we ended up, is that you want something that's nonpartisan. But I think it's important that people understand that there's some basic things that are going on that could affect housing and other kinds of things in town. So maybe, I don't know, is it the planning and zoning chair, the commission chair that would say something? Maybe there's somebody else that should do that. But I think the original point was just to raise the issues of what's going on in the state and make sure people are aware that it's coming.
I mean,
Well, what we could do is hold a special meeting of the RTM that would allow people to discuss, because if they're talking about all the legislative items that are before us, forget the controversial ones for a second. I think you'll find that both Matt and Terry agree on most of the items that are going on, because most of what's going through the legislature will be puppies and kittens, or voting for them. And then they can have their conversation about the ones that are a little more controversial. But we could do it by way of a special meeting as an information session.
I have a question. Was that League of Women voter discussion videotaped? And if so,
it wasn't. It's considered can you hear me? It's considered something special for members. Like, it's like a privilege, it's something you get a little extra because you've paid a membership. But it was awesome. It was fantastic. I wish it were recorded, that I would post it on Facebook and give it to all of you. So yeah, join the League of Women Voters. Okay.
Did it remain, Teresa, did it remain informational?
Oh yeah, it was awesome. It was people sent in their questions about everything happening legislatively, and Terry and Matt each gave their viewpoint. It wasn't a debate in any way. It was just each of them stating where they stand. And and like Jack said, and on many issues they do agree, and then on others they don't. And it was well done. It was fantastic. One of the best I've been to.
The RTM is a different venue. And it's basically an apolitical organization, and we traditionally have not had major political debate. We've had some hot topics which have that aspect to them, but generally we have not had major political parties identified and have speakers up. And I think there's ample opportunities throughout the town, and certainly if you read the newspaper, to discover what's going on. Jamie has talked about it in the OPC in some detail, and I think Jeremy's talked about it too. If you look at look at the last OPC meeting, I think there was some discussion about it. So there are ways for people to track it. It's spoken about regularly, and I suggest we leave it on that basis.
But Seth, maybe you could put out something that says, here we can figure out where they are in videos. If Jamie said at the OPC meeting and things like that, and then let everybody just go for it. But at least we can point them in a direction where the information is.
Or here's an idea. Teresa, because this was so successful, do you think they would consider doing it again for the town, not just for the League of Women Voters?
I mean, I think we could reach out to them and ask, but I think they each, all of them, I mean, every member do their own legislative sessions with their constituents. I think it's sometimes just a matter of maybe following them on social media and seeing when they're doing it. But I mean, I thought it was interesting. I do think it's something that the RTM as a whole, it doesn't have to be a debate. It wasn't a debate, quite frankly. I thought it was super helpful. But again, if we don't do it as an RTM, like Seth said, there's so many ways to get this information directly from them. If you, they all do things. Like I know Terry hosts a lot of things, Matt hosts a lot of things. So it's out there.
Well, my experience has been that the more time that goes on and the more solidified what the issues are and where this thing's going to come out, the more discussion evolves and appears. And it certainly will be something that's continued to be discussed, and because it is changing and it's still evolving. So I think the opportunity for people to hear about what's going on and to be informed is certainly there. I don't think that, that we're taking anything away by choosing not to do it in our particular venue. So what I
Do you want
would
someone to make a
again,
motion to set the agenda?
yes, that would. I was asking if I could. Thank you very much. Would you like me to read it again, just in case?
And have me, no?
We have David Knopf and Wayne Fox, and then approving the 9,200 and amending the agreement between the town and the Connecticut Green Bank.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay. Did you get that, Mark?
Yep. Thank you.
All in favor? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Opposed? I don't see any. Abstentions? I don't see any. Wonderful. It's done. I will accept a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion. Patty?
Monica's in there, and closely followed by Ann Reed. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Raise your hands. Aye. Opposed? I don't
Aye.
see anybody.
Bye, Lois.
I see
Well,
they're
thank you.
saying aye. Now they're turning into goodbye.
Aye.
Good night.
Good job, Lois.
Good evening. Thank you all.
Bye, guys.